Welcome to this video on the essence of investment and risk management. First, we start by defining in which way investment markets are predictable, because it's quite funny that most people fully understand that a coin flip is only predictable in a probabilistic sense. So let's say that if you came out and told someone that you can predict the next coin flip, then they probably will immediately distrust you, because we know that the coin follows a Bernoulli distribution, and if we have multiple coin flips, it's a binomial distribution. So even though these distributions are quite simple and we fully understand them, we are still not able to predict the realization of any coin flip. But the interesting thing is that the additional complexity of investment markets fools some people into believing that we can predict their realization. So if you're an investment professional, I'm quite sure that some of your friends occasionally have asked you about investment advice. So something like, how about this stock? Should I buy it now? Will it go up or will it go down? How about this currency? Should I hold it? Should I buy it? Or something like that. But of course, with time, as you get experience in investment markets, you will quite clearly realize that they are not predictable in relation to the realization of them. They are only predictable in a probabilistic sense. But investment markets are even more complex than the coin, because they have historically behaved according to distributions that we don't even analytically know, and for the future it's something that we must estimate, where we have a great deal of uncertainty in the estimates that we make. So just because we cannot predict the realization of investment markets does not mean that careful investment management is a waste of time. We just need to understand that we can only add value in a probabilistic sense. So the first thing we need to do is try to estimate some base case distributions for how the markets we invest in behave. So here you can see, for example, we have equities and bonds, and we have a base case here. And this is still hugely oversimplifying because this is just a normal distribution. But of course, there is some probability that we are in a risk-on case where you have a higher return on equities and maybe a higher correlation between bonds and equities. So we need to weigh the probability of how much we believe to be in one case or the other case, because eventually we must decide on one portfolio. And the way that we decide on these portfolios is try to maximize the expected return without taking too much risk. So this is what we would call diversification. So given the constraints that you have and the risk targets that you have for investing in some portfolio, you want to try to build a portfolio that has the best expected return. But it is still just an expectation. It's just in a probabilistic sense that we can expect it to behave in a good way. So although there is an element of risk management to diversification, I like to think about risk management in a slightly different sense. So I would see diversification as generally building this robust portfolio, while risk management is considering what happens to this portfolio if you are in a adverse scenario. So in this case, you can see another distribution estimate for bonds and equities, and a 60-40 portfolio where we imagine that we are in a case where we are in the 90% CVAR and diversification fails. So it goes from something negative to something positive, the correlation. And in this case, we would then, for the risk management, consider how likely do we think the scenario is. Is it a risk that we want to take, or is it something that we should try to eliminate? So this is how I would define risk management as opposed to general diversification. All right. So these are some of the points that I will go through in the first chapter of the portfolio construction and risk management book. And I also give some insights on market states, structural breaks, and time conditioning. While the book is being written, you have the opportunity to get access early, where you will also have access to some Python code. In addition to that, you will have access to a community forum where you can ask questions and I will give answers, and you can learn this material interactively with other campaign backers. If you happen to be among the top 10 backers once the campaign is over, then you will also have the opportunity to try out an institutional grade implementation of the framework in the book. While the book is being written, I will give a sneak peek into its contents on this SSRN link, but of course all the main and really insightful content will only be available to campaign backers. So the book will naturally build on my articles that you can find here, but compared to these, it will be much more pedagogical, so I will go into much more detail and very carefully explain all the subtle nuances of this framework. And of course, there will also be new perspectives, such as the ones that I've presented here, and in relation to risk modeling, for example, that is not publicly available right now. So I'll be posting about this book in the Applied Quantitative Investment Management group on LinkedIn, which I encourage you to join. And if you have any questions about this campaign, you are of course also very welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn.